Okay, there we go. Sorry for the slightly late start. It's 1:03. Welcome to Runchatlive. We are hopefully, I'm going to check on here because it's the best way of doing it. Hopefully we're live as well to the running community on Facebook. If you are in the running community and you're watching this live, then chuck us a comment in there so I can rest knowing securely that we are actually live on your page. I'm going to go and have a look as well. Alan, hi Matt, fantastic. What a mate, thank you very much. And I enjoyed very much your interview, Mr. Podcast Star. That was great. Running community are doing their own podcast or webcast thing as well now. So that was great. I'm looking forward to the others. Great. So I'll take Alan's word for it. We are live in the running community as well. And we're live on facebook.com/Matt Phillips RCL. Great. Well, welcome to, what are we now? 47, is it? Getting towards the 50. We're going to have to do something special for 50. And it is a plantar fasciitis special, which I'm very excited about. And I'm really pleased that the running community on Facebook are on board, because this is a real topic which, yes, therapists need to know about, but also, wow, runners need to know about as well. We know that it can affect up to about 8% prevalence in runners. It's one of the big running related injuries. We've all got a 1 in 10 chance of developing it at some point in our life, whether we're runners or not. So I'm really happy the running community are with us. As always, if you're new at the running community and you don't know how it works, then all you need to do is just write a comment, and I can choose. I have that power, being the host, to either bring it up or not on the screen. For example, Alan, I'll get on with Alan. So let's give Alan some. There you go, Alan. There's your Andy Warhol moment. Your picture comes up as well. So fine. You can look great and you can get your comment out there. And more importantly, your questions, anything and everything to do with plantar fasciitis. So do feel free. Don't feel embarrassed. Do feel free to put comments up there. If you have got questions that you don't want to ask personally, or then you can always email them to me. I've got my phone next to me in case there's something you're just a bit worried about asking it, as long as it's to do with plantar fasciitis and not something else. So yeah, welcome. Right, before we do bring up our guest, I'm very excited about Hamish Vickerman, creator of the Fasciitis Fighter, which is a word which is impossible to say without going, the Fasciitis Fighter. It's a great. I'm going to talk to him about what were some of the things he decided to not call it shortly. But before we do get into that and bring up Hamish, let's just have a look. Last week, hopefully you saw or have caught up with the wonderful Emma Brockwell and Grania Donnelly, all about return to running post-pregnancy. Fantastic episode. It's very topical at the moment. A lot of people are, which is fantastic, are getting onto it and reading it and hearing about it and talking about it. 2 leading women's health physiotherapists who've produced a fantastic guide and recently also published a great infographic as well, which has been updated. So I do encourage you to have a look at YouTube, or if you prefer just listening, then check it out on any of the podcast apps. Really good episode, some great feedback. Do check it out. And Emma as well, not Gonia sadly, but Emma is going to be one of the speakers of the Runchatlive running conference as well. So with that in mind, if you haven't got a ticket yet, well, you've missed the early bird, so you're going to pay full whack. Sorry, what can I do? But yeah, do go along to rcl2020.eventbrite.co.uk and grab yourself either a virtual or a face-to-face ticket. Is it going to be face-to-face? I'm getting more emails asking me that now. Is it, Matt? Is it? I don't know. Who knows? Boris doesn't even know. How do I know? But what we're doing is we're working along the idea of, yes, it'll be face-to-face and virtual, like last year, or maybe it'll be face-to-face with just the national speakers, because the internationals won't be able to make it over, and we'll have a big screen for the international speakers. That's point 2, which I'm kind of enjoying imagining at the moment. Or it'll be totally virtual. But anyway, which of those 3, it will be happening. And if you have bought a real life face-to-face ticket, then we will transfer it to the slightly cheaper virtual one and refund you the difference of those. But it will happen. So do get in there and buy your tickets at that address, which I'll put up magically at the bottom when I edit this afterwards. Talking of the conference, at the end of this, Hamish Vickerman will be drawing a lucky winner to win one of the Fasciitis Fighters, which we're going to talk about now. So as long as you bought a ticket between the beginning and, well, now, then you could be in this bowl. We're going to do it traditional wise. We were talking about this. I'm so not a business person. I'm rubbish. I cut these out with scissors and put a biro on it and numbered them all. It's not what a businessman does. It's pathetic. What a waste of time. But I like it, and I think it looks more original. So that's why I did it. Right. So there we go. Before I bring... oh, that's an interesting question here from Dave already. Dave, do I I'll leave that up there for you. Can you actually do anything to get rid of it? Is that done in a Scottish accent, or did I just read it like that? We'll come back to that, Davey. We will come back to that, I promise you. Before I do answer that question, or Hamish does, just a thanks to Brighton Beard Company. Let's give them a little bit of a show up here, because they are the sponsors, and they do produce some fantastic essences and everything you could possibly need. Bring that up. There you go. www.thebrightonbeardcompany.co.uk. You do get a 15% discount if you put in the code RCL15. If you're bearded, you need some oil, you need some balm, you probably need a brush, you might not have a bag to put it in, you might want to buy a present for somebody else. Mike James is bringing it back. Matt Scarsbrook is bringing it back. A lot of people, because of COVID-19, are just thinking, you know what, I need to look a little bit more masculine, I'm going to grow a beard. No, there's no point shaving, that's why they're growing beards. So yeah, if you do get into it, then do make sure that you use that RCL15 discount. There you go. Right, here we go. I'm going to bring up Hamish, and we're going to talk about plantar fasciitis. Do please feel free to leave comments and questions. We will get to them when we see them. There you go. So right, without further ado, let's give it a that. Let's welcome Hamish. Mate, sorry to leave you down in the lobby for a while. How are you?
I'm good.
Yeah, we were worried about sound for a while, but it's okay now.
Fantastic.
Where are you? It looks very dark outside.
Yeah, so it's around just after 10 o'clock on Friday night. So big Friday night for me here.
And here is where?
Gold Coast, Australia.
Beautiful.
Horrible place.
What are you talking about? Why?
Yeah. No, I'm just.
You're being sarcastic, aren't you? Yeah, I've been there myself. Fantastic place. Fantastic. So thanks so much for joining us on this plantar fasciitis special. What would you normally be doing this time of night? Did you say you'd be having an early night? You got kids, haven't you?
Yeah, I got a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old, so I'd probably be in bed by now. Just trying to get as many Z's in as possible before they either wake you up in the middle of the night or 5 a.m. Yeah, so.
I know exactly how you feel. Mine is slightly older, but I am in that state of, oh my God, I can't think properly. Right, okay, we're going to crack on straight with it then. There's no questions in there at the moment, well, apart from one. I don't know if we're going to go to straight. Is there anything? Well, in answer to your question, Davey, yes, there is, but just watch on. We'll get to that eventually. There is plenty of stuff you can do as long as you look at the evidence. But before we do direct that completely, thank you, Matt Scarsbrook, for that comment, by the way. Just remove the foot. It's very responsible. Is that the way it's going to go today? That's one option. I'm not sure how evidence-based. Well, it'll probably lead to other complications. Maybe try some conservative management first. But let's go first of all with plantar fasciitis. Lots of people think they got it. It's a bit of an umbrella term. Over to you, Hamish. How do you define? How does somebody know if they have actually got plantar fasciitis, and should we even be using that term?
Yeah, you're right. It's a pretty broad term, I suppose. This is probably the first thing people think of when they've got some heel pain or foot pain, but there are some other possibilities or differential diagnoses when we do get pain in the heel or foot. Predominantly with plantar fasciitis or plantar heel pain, as we call it, or plantar fasciopathy or plantar fasciosis. We'll probably chat a bit more about this. It's normally that morning pain right on the sort of medial heel, calcaneal tubercle, if we sort of push on it, and running up into the plantar fascia on the base of the foot. So normally we'll feel it first thing in the morning. But also with prolonged activity on our feet, or sustained time off our feet and jumping back on our feet again during the day. So,
what's the deal
generally
with on the inner side? Why is it? I mean, that's quite a classic way of defining it, maybe. But why does it tend to be on the inner side of the heel as opposed to kind of on the other side?
Yeah, it's a good question. Probably just the anatomy and where the plantar fascia is inserting into the calcaneal tubercle. Yeah, it does vary in its presentation where that pain is, but predominantly on that medial sort of tubercle.
And that morning symptom's quite kind of a good indication as well, isn't it? Getting out of bed. What do people describe it as normally?
Yeah, some nasty words. They can, yeah.
Broken glass I read all the time. That's one of
Broken
the first
glass,
things I try
yeah.
and get rid of that. It's a horrible analogy. It's like, how do you know it feels like walking on broken glass? But that's, it shows how painful it can be. So, and it's pretty prevalent, isn't it? I mentioned in the introduction, a lot of runners tend to get it, but it's big in the population as well. Do we know what causes it? Is that something which is very clear, or is it a bit cloudy still?
It's a bit cloudy, you're right. Yeah. So, like it's around 8% of runners. It's the third most common running injury. So, yeah, but obviously with running, there's a lot of increased load through the heel and foot. So, we are likely to see more issues with the plantar fascia. Although in the non-runner, it's still, there's a 5 to 10% incidence of it as well. So, yeah, we're seeing it slightly more in runners.
So I always find it interesting that, okay, people who are not running, why are they getting it? Let's take the running out of the equation. So maybe we could transfer it over. So what are some of the reasons why?
So factors, BMI, body weight, potentially a lack of ankle dorsiflexion or range of motion, and some occupational stuff like long periods on our feet there's some evidence for those factors contributing to it.
Yeah, I guess the long time on your feet kind of works if you're running on top of that as well and spending a long time on your feet. Yeah, but it is a bit of a tricky. I mean, when you said like high BMI or something, runners automatically assume if you're heavier, you're more likely to get it. But I treat a lot of very skinny light runners who've got practically no body fat at all. So it's a weird one, isn't it? I suppose load, we'll see later on. The load is the important one if you making too much demands of it. So if we go I want to lead up to why you created the Fasciitis Fighter by having a look at what traditional treatments are, and in doing so, people who are listening and watching, if you've got any traditional treatments or things which you've done which have either worked or not worked, then do feel free to leave them in the comments. But yeah, if we do before the research came out in 2014, what were some of the traditional ways of dealing with plantar fasciitis?
Yeah, so I suppose people would be pretty familiar with stretching, maybe the frozen rolling bottle of the ice on the foot, or a golf ball, taping or phoces, or there's injections, corticosteroid injections. There's quite a number of different treatments, but probably stretching and rolling and some sort of support potentially were probably the more common ones.
And in your experience as a clinician, I mean, were they kind of working much? Can people get by with that, or?
Look, that's the thing. Some people do really well with these. There's so many different treatments, and if you listen to people's stories and what's helped them, some things work for people, doesn't work for others. Even like loading, we'll talk about. It just doesn't work for everyone. As much as I'd like to think it does, it doesn't. So pain and injury is complex, and we can't, unfortunately, find that silver bullet that just is going to fix everyone's, plantar fascia.
It's one of the tricky things, isn't it? Some people do nothing apart from stretching and they get better. So we kind of think, well, it must have been the stretching that sorted it out. Then probably, unless it's going to get better anyway. But
with time, natural history. And
I did put a question out there. What do people do? And I think Steve Cole's almost desperate message came up. Let's just show this in the stream. Thanks, Steve, running community. He's not sure about top tips. There's nothing is working! Exclamation mark. And there's a laughter kind of icon there, but I think there's tears coming. Those tears are real tears. There's not laughter tears, because it is frustrating. He says, I roll my foot / massage it with a frozen water bottle each night, and I use a hard massage ball once a day plus regular stretching. It still kills each evening, especially after a run. I think that summed up nicely what most people do with it. I don't know whether Steve's been to see anybody for it. If you're in here, Steve, let me know. But that sounds like a lot of the stuff which most clinicians will recommend as well, isn't it, really?
It's a fairly standard sort of treatment option. Yeah.
What is it? What's your feeling? Let's look at them one by one. I mean, the icing, for example. What, in your experience, if the icing does help? How's it helped? And is it going to be a short or long-term thing, or?
Yeah, so I suppose that we're sort of pushing the icing, inflammation of the plantar fascia, which is people are often told the plantar fascia is inflamed, and so you think, well, if it's inflamed, I should probably ice it, settle the inflammation, help the pain. Also, some icing would have some pain relieving sort of effects as well. So that's why that's a go-to treatment option for a lot of people.
But it's kind of not going to last forever, is it? It's not kind of getting
it's just going to have some very short-term transient effects. Yeah.
So looking at and Steve, I did ask you permission to use this thing up here, and I really am going to milk it now. But so, for example, you said nothing's working. So here we go. The first one, ice, will get rid of the pain for a while, but it's not really going to do anything long term to make it go away. You're still going to hurt again. The next one you said was, let's have a look. You massage the ball once a day, a hard massage ball. Some people really dig into it, like lacrosse ball. I mean, I say like I know. I got lacrosse balls in clinic probably, I don't know, 2007 or 8. I remember ordering a load of lacrosse balls thinking these will hit the spot. What's your feeling on that, digging in?
Personally, I probably don't really try and push on that sore spot too much at all, to be honest. If the client or patient comes in and they get relief with rolling or pushing on it, then I'm not going to say stop doing it, but it's probably maybe do it more on the not over the very point of the plantar fascia, the heel, but maybe the midfoot. More of a pain relieving tool, but not changing the narrative that they're not. Most people think they may be stretching out the fascia or deforming the fascia or loosening it up, but often just that input is having some sort of physiological effect and giving some pain relief.
I think that's the danger, where some people do feel the same as having a really, really painful massage, or kind of getting into extreme CrossFit mentality where you're kind of massaging each other with lead pipes and things. If it's hurting, we always automatically think, well, it must be doing something really good here. And we know that's kind of not the case. But I think it's the same as always. If something's really hurting you, it's probably not going to help at all. It's just making it even more sensitized, isn't it?
Yeah, and interesting. There's a bit of research around tendons, and that we're still starting to think of the plantar fascia as a bit like a tendon. And we know with tendons is, we don't really want to poke them and prod them. We used to rub them and poke needles into them, but we're sort of learning that we should probably just leave them alone from a manual therapy prodding sort of point of view. So potentially the same with the plantar fascia or any sensitive body tissue. If we keep poking it and prodding it, is that really going to help?
Yeah. So there we go, Steve. Okay, and don't take it personally, Steve. I did ask you if I could use this, but this is to help you in the long run. So the first thing, icing, makes the pain go down for a while. You might think, wow, this is sorted, but it's not going to be a long-term thing. Poking it could potentially be irritating it if we have got sensitized tissue on the bottom of the sole there. At the time when anything hurts, if you cause pressure on the body somewhere or just pinch your earlobe or your thumb, that the pain will stop because your system's kind of stimulated by something else. And often that's enough to make pain disappear. We do it all the time. But again, it's probably just a temporary end, and the next morning or after the next run, that's when it could come back with a vengeance. You could be making it worse. That was your second one. The stretching. Okay, so the stretching's been a little bit supported by research, I think it's included. What's the idea behind the stretching, and how is it that people are supposed to stretch it? Do you still give patients stretching?
I probably give a bit of stretching, extending the big toe to wind up the plantar fascia or the windlass. And then it's one of those things, some people might find it helpful, some people won't. So, I'll give them the option, I suppose, like any exercise. There's different types of stretches. A lot of people will stretch their calves, or a combination of a calf and a plantar fascia stretch. We've got our Strasbourg socks that people are quite familiar with, where they have the foot under stretch all night. I haven't experienced it myself, and not too many patients I've treated have used it, but a few that have find it very, very uncomfortable and difficult. So That's another
So for the
option.
runners in here, you mentioned like extension of the toe. So could you? It's probably easy to show, but I'm not going to ask you to get your feet out this time of night. But what is it? Could you, with words, describe the idea? You mentioned the windlass mechanism. So what is it people should be doing and testing for to see whether the stretch is actually going to target the fascia or not?
So if you extend your big toe, so like if you're extending your big toe upwards, this will put tension along the windlass mechanism or the plantar fascia. If the plantar fascia is really sensitized, even just extending the big toe will make them aware of that. So yeah, that's the base around the stretch. Is you're placing that plantar fascia under tension when you extend the toe.
Yeah. So if you want anyone who's at home at the moment kind of giving it a go, then yeah. I mean, if you're really suffering from it, you'll probably feel it straight away. But yeah, you're pulling that big toe back and then feeling that kind of ridge on the inside of your arch tighten and lengthen, kind of like that's what's actually you're trying
Yeah,
to
you'll feel a band or a taut sort of band. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the idea.
And I think that's the reason we get that morning pain is that we initially put a stretch through the plantar fascia and that tissue hasn't had to stretch for 8 hours or however long the person's been supine for. So that initial stretch is perceived as a bit of a threat to the body.
Yeah. Which is why we kind of say don't judge your recovery by how you feel first thing in the morning in those first kind of few minutes. I've got runners who hobble for the first 10 seconds every single morning, and then they'll go and do a 15-16 minute park run. So it's not a guide. You might have it for the rest of your life. It's how you function afterwards and outside that counts. So anyway, so Steve, we've just had a look at 3 things, and I've used the example because it's typically 3 things which people will do regularly. Even the stretching by itself or in combination with what you're doing, it's so tricky to say whether what you're doing works. But the rest of the show is about looking at the evidence, and particularly with what research, and it was 2014, wasn't it, when Michael came along and did some research and ended up eventually with you creating the Fasciitis Fighter. So yeah, so what came along? Talk me through, and the runners as well, and any therapists watching, what was so special about Rathleff's studies, and what did it highlight, and how did things change in terms of treatment?
Yeah, so as you mentioned, in 2014, Michael Rathleff did a study comparing some high load strength training. So they compared that with a stretching group, and so they did it over 12 months. But the high load strength training group showed a better outcome over the first 12 weeks of the study compared to the stretching group. So a significant improvement compared to the stretching group. Interestingly, at 6 and 12 months, things evened off. So there wasn't a difference. But potentially that was because the strength training group were already feeling better. But it's hard to tell as well. So this it was like the first study to look at how some strength training or loading would benefit the plantar fascia compared to traditional methods like we just discussed.
And the key word probably being high load there, because I know some runners just love experimenting with just doing hill raises on their steps at home and kind of bopping up and down and stuff. But when they say high load, what sort of kind of load are we talking about? What were some of the guidelines in terms of whether you really are exposing enough load to that plantar fascia?
So that study, so they rolled up the towel to extend the big toe. So how we were just discussing just previously. Yep. So the calf raise was performed with the big toe extended maximally at the end of range. They were advised to do it on a single leg, so just a single leg calf raise. However, if they couldn't tolerate that load, they would be doing a double leg calf raise to begin. And then they started off at 12 rep max, so 3 sets of 12 reps. And then this was progressed to 10 reps of 4 sets, and then 8 reps of 5 sets. So plus adding weight,
Yeah.
Adding,
so max? There's probably some runners who are like, what, you just stop at 12 for the hell of it, or?
So yeah, 12 is where you're as much weight as you can do over 12 repetitions. Yep.
So you have to stop. You literally
you're knackered.
Do you use the word failure, or I'm having a bit of a chat with Claire
failure
at the moment. Do you like using that word, or is that kind of diminishing and kind of make you think?
Complete fatigue or failure.
I'd use failure. I think it's because I used to lift weights and stuff, and it's always like, yeah, take it to failure, dude, take it to failure. You can't do any more. But I like telling runners that the reason failure is not an ugly word. You literally take it so you can't do any more. And I'm sure many runners in here who have maybe attempted some exercises or doing their hill lifts. It's not their fault. Physios, not just physios, but healthcare professionals do tend to hand out, oh yeah, do 3 sets of 10. And they don't stress enough that we only say 10 because the idea is you can't do more than 10. It's reaching that failure, isn't it? Which is, I'll say it again, it's reaching that point of total fatigue, which in theory will stimulate the adaptions that are necessary. And these photos which show people doing calf raises is a really difficult photo to show in a magazine because they haven't got room to show the whole person. They can't show the backpack. I think in the study they used backpacks, didn't they, with books?
Yeah, just
stuff. Yep. Or maybe you're holding a dumbbell or something, but they never show that in the magazines. They only show a foot going up and down, which doesn't give you an indication there's actually weight on the end of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you said, a single foot can make a difference. But for a lot of runners who are strong anyway, you're not going to reach failure with just your body weight. You're going to have to grab some stuff.
Yeah, and that's what we find. A lot of people are just underdosing, so we're not getting those adaptations, or building up that load that we need to run on. Saying that, a lot of people.
Yeah, go on.
A lot of people, if they have a very sensitized plantar fascia, they can't tolerate too much. So it might be that it's a double leg calf raise, or it is just body weight until they, progress to loading it up.
Oh, definitely. I've had that myself, and fortunately, I had one of your Fasciitis Fighters. But in my stage of treatment, I was trying to use, and it was just too early. I wasn't able to actually do one of those using the Fasciitis Fighter or a towel. It was just too early. And comparing it to the other leg, it's only when you might surprise yourself. Anybody suffering from symptoms like this, just do a comparison. You might have never tried it. Do a comparison of how, if you can go up onto one toe, just on one foot and a maximum height compared to the other foot, and you'll amaze yourselves. And then a coin will drop and go, Jesus, I didn't realize how weak I was on this foot. If you want to solve that, then obviously you'll get stronger. And that's where the kind of whole loading thing comes into it. I've got my crib sheet as well. Tempo. Talk to me about tempo, because runners will just, if you say 3 sets of 10, they're just going to bop up and down and finish it and go. But what did the paper say about tempo?
So the guide was 3 seconds up or concentric, and then a 2-second isometric hold, or just a static hold at the top, and then a 3-second eccentric lower drop down.
So that's quite a lot. That's like 6 seconds a rep. You're trying to do 10. That's like a minute on each leg.
Yeah. It's working pretty hard.
I don't think runners have got that patience. That's so if you're doing each foot with a little gap in between, there's 3 minutes just for one set. And if you're doing 3 sets, that's about 10 minutes. And I can't imagine many runners bothering with that. But that's an idea of what you're supposed to be doing.
Saying that, the study, the exercise was every second day, so it's not a multiple time a day exercise. It was once every second day.
Yeah, so you're hitting it properly and using the right tempo, but then you're not wasting your time doing it. Was it just once a day they did it?
Every second day.
Second day, yeah. Okay. And how many times did they repeat it during a day? I can't remember.
No, just once. Just the once.
Just once. Cool. It's making it worthwhile. It's doing the exercises with an intention, as opposed to just looking at your bit of paper your physio's giving you and just going through the motions. Let's have a little look so far before we go on to how the Fasciitis Fighter actually steps in here, excuse the pun, and kind of helps with this. Let's have a little look at some questions. Let's bring some stuff up. Alan, we've already mentioned. Let's give a shout out to other people in here. Timothy Grigg, how you doing? Thanks for joining us. Chris is in the house. Trevor's in the house. Just talking to Sharon, apparently. That's fine. Hi, Trevor. How are you, mate? Stephen Dunbar has a little question here. Do running hills agitate plantar fasciitis, as this is why I picked it up? Okay, so before we go on to the fighter, What do you think about hills, Hamish?
Yeah, potentially that hill required more load tolerance through the plantar fascia. So yeah, that's reasonable to think it stirred it up just because there was more force going through the plantar fascia than it was used to.
How quick with your runners do you take away running? Because a lot of runners, I don't know, do you try and keep people running, or is it likely that if they've reached a certain level that they're going to have to stop running and calm tissues down? How do you measure it?
Yeah, it's very individual, Matt. Just how bad it is, what their tolerance is like. You don't you try not take away running from runners. It's one of the worst things you can do. But sometimes there is a where we do need to give it a break if it's really sensitized. But yeah, often it can just be a decrease in volume or intensity, speed, or taking away hills. So we can adjust the running to allow things to calm down enough while we build it back up, basically. But yeah, there are times where you've just got to have a break.
Yeah, so it is individual. You need to talk to. That's where you got to work with somebody, and it's difficult in these COVID-19 times. Well, not in Australia because I mean, what did you hit? Maybe 120? Was it?
Yeah,
Is that?
we're pretty lucky here. We've done pretty well, but Melbourne's had another outbreak. But
Has it?
yeah,
Was that
and
recently? Is it? Oh, right.
yeah, just recently. But yeah, we're pretty favored in Queensland. Yeah.
Pretty spread out, aren't you? But yeah, so it's tricky. But even online diagnosis is still definitely, if you're suffering from the symptoms, and get an online consultation. There's a lot that can be done online by therapists who are in the know, if they're evidence based, and then they will
Definitely.
let you know if you can run or not. Like you say, Hamish, if we can keep you running, then we do. And sometimes it's better to keep running because if you stop running, it just opens up the door to even more sensitization and problems when you start running. So,
Yeah,
but get it
deloading.
checked out. What we got here, Lasse Peterson says, "Hey, will you guys be mentioning plantar fasciitis rupture? I'm dealing with it now. Is it any different to rehabilitate than normal?" Okay, Hamish, I'm sorry about putting you on the spot with these, but you are the Fasciitis Fighter creator, so you can answer everything.
Apparently, yeah. So look,
So,
yeah. So a rupture depends on their function, I suppose, and their symptoms. Someone might have a rupture with minimal discomfort. Some might not be able to weight bear. So it's gonna depend, and that's where you need a professional opinion, whether you need to put it in a boot for a number of weeks or just deload it. But once that calms down, then obviously we still need to build up that tissue tolerance again and try and restore normal function.
it's definitely, I always use the idea of a ladder, and you're going to be on the ladder. You just need to see someone to see where you are on the ladder. But a lot of people will be right down the bottom. They'll do what's necessary to climb a few rungs and be able to kind of weight bear again. But then they'll go out running and they haven't climbed up the other rungs. So, however
Yeah,
severe, mild your case is, you just got to do the next rungs before you can hope to kind of run normal without symptoms. But yeah, it depends, Lassie. I'm afraid not a specific answer to that. Maybe comment back, Lassie. What have you been? What are you doing at the moment? What have you been given? What have you been told? Have you seen anybody? And if so, what are you doing? That'd be interesting to know.
I think
Um,
it's with imaging, and we haven't discussed it. You know, imaging it has its place, but it can also lead to some kinesiophobia and catastrophizing. If we hearing we've got tears or changes in structure, it puts people off loading that tissue as well. So we need to be educated on what's the right amount of load we can tolerate, and yeah, just having a better understanding of pain in the heel, so we get some confidence in actually loading it up rather than resting it or deloading it.
how do you decide if imaging is necessary or not? And how can imaging change the treatment you might give someone?
Yeah, so I think if they're not responding to a robust sort of treatment program, I think over a number of months, maybe 4 to 6 months, or they have some other sinister sort of symptoms or red flags, then we'd obviously get some imaging. It's definitely not required straight away for if clinically there's signs of plantar fasciitis, but yeah, it does have its place. We things like stress fractures and rare tumours and things like that. So it's just being being aware of other sources of heel pain and not missing them. But yeah, most cases we don't
if
need to jump
conservative
in.
measures aren't working, if what you know should be working doesn't work, then we get imaging. Not jumping in too quickly. I think a lot of runners are straight away like, I need to get it, or somebody will suggest, oh, you need to get an MRI and ultrasound on that. It's work out what's going on. It doesn't really work in that order, does it?
Yeah, it doesn't really give us the answer. That's right.
Timothy's there. Yep, Timothy is championing load management as well, how imperative it is going forwards. Very true. What's Alan got going on here? Alan. If you've had plantar fasciitis once, is it likely it'll be a reoccurring problem? Can't say. It depends again on this, I'm afraid, Hamish.
I don't know the answer to this one. Yeah, I'm not sure, Alan.
There you go. He didn't say it. I think in most running related injuries, one of the biggest precursor is, have you had it before? I think it does open the door, doesn't it? But
based off pain, the body remembers injuries and previous experiences. So yeah, potentially more likely. I'm not sure if there's any research, but there could be out there. Might have to look it up after this.
I think that's why it's so important to try and talk it through with your therapist and work out why it happened in the first place. A lot of runners don't do that. They'll deal with it and they'll maybe manage to get rid of it, but they haven't actually worked out why they got it in the first place. So they just go and do the same thing again, and guess what? It's come back again. So sometimes we're our own worst enemy. Sometimes you can't work out what caused it, but you've got to have a real good dig around and try and work out why. Is it a bad training or footwear or whatever it is, try and work it out.
The fear of it reoccurring can also be a problem as well, and holding people back. I know a lot of people that avoid running or not doing as much running because they don't want it to return and be so debilitating. So yeah, it's a normal sort of worry.
Yeah, a lot of the online. Are you doing online consultations at the moment? Is that big?
We've done a few, but because we can see people in clinic now, people prefer to come in. Yeah.
I think in the UK, because we're still, depends if you're allied professional, you can see people now, but what you can get out of an online consultation and have the kind of red flags checked for, you get peace of mind a lot. A lot of the online consultations I'm doing at the moment is a case where I'm getting rid of some things which mean actually, you got to really get this checked out now. And just that peace of mind can bring symptoms down incredibly. And I see that an awful lot. So again, for example, Steve's come back to me now. Thank you. I haven't been to see an expert yet. I know what it's like. Runners do fear that if they get involved with a therapist, then it's just going to be, don't like the look of that. Yeah, you're going to need 6 of these, but if you pay for 5, then I'll give you the 6 ones for free. It's all a bit of a car salesman thing. But if you find yourself a reputable therapist, they should be able to help you an awful lot just with a 30-minute conversation. Okay, 100%. It's not as good as face-to-face, is it? But there's an awful lot you can help with.
That's right. Yeah. Just individualizing that education to that person, and listening to their story, and there's so much you can get out of a session or two.
Definitely. And when it comes to finding a therapist, don't necessarily always jump to what another runner in the club has seen or something. Now you've got a few little ideas. We'll continue with the fasciitis. Now you've just got to say, do you use Fasciitis Fighter? And then you'll know whether that therapist is actually reputable or not. It'll make it easier for you. But it's tricky to find a therapist just by word of mouth, because what worked for one person might just be coincidence.
Right.
You might have one runner who slaps their ass with a kipper for 5 days and the plantar fasciitis goes, but it doesn't necessarily mean that kipper was responsible for getting rid of the pain. So you can't always guarantee that what people do is actually responsible for it. So have a little look at the evidence. Follow the evidence, runners. Are they up to date? Sharon is just still talking to Trevor. I'm not going to even put that up. Get a room, you two. Sort it out. Trevor. Oh, look, talking to Brad. There he is. Go, Mish, gents. Get a Fasciitis Fighter under your feet, mate.
Oh, good day, Brad.
We were just talking about you, Brad, beforehand. Thanks for joining us. Talking about evidence-based practice, just have a look at Brad's website and have a look at some of these guests. You've been on the show a few times, haven't you? Mind you, you two have got history, haven't you?
Yeah, me and Brad went to uni, started back in 2001, so we've known each other for a while.
There you go. Good to see you in here, Brad. Thank you. Just checking down now. Trevor started talking to me in Spanish for some reason. Are you okay, Trevor? Do you need some help? Hola, ¿cómo está? Muy bien. Perfecto. Mark Nissy's in the house. How are you as well? Oh, Simon Spooner. There you go. Simon Spooner, Morrissey et al. He's quoting papers now. Here we go. If we needed research, long pops, Simon. Management of Plantar Heel Pain, a best practice guide, synthesizing systematic review with expert clinical reasoning and patient values. There we go. Research today is kindly sponsored by podiatrist and all-round good bloke Simon Spooner. Jody, we've got a question. Oh, no, that's not Jody. Jody, under what circumstances would you recommend wearing orthotics for PF? There we go. Do you work with podiatrists, or do you? What's your deal on orthotics, Hamish?
Orthoses. So, yeah, I've worked with podiatrists in the past. They have their place, like all these other treatments. For some people they don't. And I guess that's where it comes down to speaking to your professional. If we look at the research, I think there's mixed sort of data coming in. I suppose we need to speak to like Ian Griffiths for some more detail on.
We don't need to speak to Ian Griffiths. We've got Simon Spooner in the house. Simon, you can come back to answer that if you want. I'm sure you're going to rattle off a few papers now on orthotics and stuff. But yeah, I mean,
I think like you comparing your customs to your prefabs hasn't shown too much difference. But then it's hard to do a study, I think, for orthoses, and there's so many variables. So it's going to depend. It's another maybe.
As far as I can see, you could fit it in with one of these things which could help offload tissue. It might get rid of symptoms for a while, but it's probably, again, not going to fix anything. You're not going to get necessarily strong enough to handle load better by sticking an orthotic device in your foot.
Yeah, you like said, it's just likely to offload or shift the load, so it's going to feel more comfortable, which is not a bad thing. It's
no, could be really important if you need to desensitize a little bit and get used to being able to walk or run without pain. And
like some taping early on, some low dye taping. That can be really comforting for the person.
Yeah. I had a bit of allergic reaction to that stuff. I haven't worn tape for ages, and I put some on, and then it just took.
Yeah, you got to check.
Oh, it's awful. Well, it wasn't awful, but it was just a bit disturbing because I'm a bit sensitive at my later years in life now. But I just had to buy some stuff to put underneath. It was all good in the end. Let's move on to Lassie. What we got to say? Blum, blum, blum. Lassie, I've just seen the doctor. I was told to stretch. Of course you were. Stretching cures everything, Lassie. Have you been told that yet? I think that's way too early. I was out sprinting last weekend where it happened. Oh, so this happened last weekend. Okay, and it's being diagnosed. Has it been diagnosed with a rupture then? How do you know if it's a rupture already? I'm trying not to weight bear too much and make gentle movement. And I agree about the ladder. You need to build up the strength of the tissue again slowly. Thanks for answering, guys. No worries at all. It's such a handout, isn't it, stretching? This is why I get a bit of reputation of slagging it off so much. But it's just the go-to solution for everything, isn't it? Just stretch it. Make you feel better.
Yeah.
It's a shame. Yeah, and that's a GP. It is handed out too much. But hey. And that's another thing, guys. Just don't always. You can't always assume that just because someone's got a certificate or a title, even if it's a GP, they're going to give you evidence-based advice. You can't assume it, unfortunately. You can't do it. Ask your GP if he's got a Fasciitis Fighter. Right, let's get rid of that. Fine. Right, so let's move on to. Oh, actually, Simon Spoon is back in the house. Here we go. Nice to know I have my place. There we are. Studies have shown. Have not been designed well in terms of orthosis design variables nor dosing. It's true. It's a big thing now, isn't it? Dosing with orthotic devices. That's what they're supposed to be used for, as opposed to correcting some poor structure. But do show foot orthoses are efficacious. Good word. He's so educated. Right. Let's. It shouldn't be too much of a jump for people looking at that photo on the screen to move from there to there. Although I wish I could magnify that a little bit. How did that come about? I mean, you obviously saw this paper, and what was the time difference? And talk me through the process of where you thought, hold on, that might be a better solution.
So I was. It was around or just after 2014, obviously, maybe 2015, 16. I was using that study and that that exercise in the clinic and seeing some good results. And I think I was just out running one day, and I had this little light bulb moment that this rolling towel was a bit annoying for patients, and they were often, not, when you'd ask them to repeat it in the clinic, they weren't really doing it correctly or not doing it because it was a bit of a hassle. So I was out running and I saw, I think it was just a gentleman doing some random calf raises on a bench that had a sort of lip on it, and his toes were hooked over it, and it just gave me this little idea that we could just come up with some sort of device that mimicked the rolled up towel. And so, yeah, that was just an idea for quite a few years, and I thought, I better try and get this idea sorted before someone else does, because I'm not that smart, so someone else would think of it. And so eventually, it took a fair bit of effort and time, but I brought the Fasciitis Fighter to market.
I can see it doing really well. I'd love to have seen a dragon. Do you have Dragon's Den in Australia?
Is it like a Shark Tank thing or
kind of investment thing where you have to pitch in front of 3 really rich people?
Yeah.
It's a perfect thing to bring along. I'd love to. I can imagine you doing that. It's such a simple solution, isn't it? I remember when the whole paper came out, and it was one of those classic cases where I was trying to get clients to do this with a towel, and just in my mind going, this is so not working. This is so uncomfortable for them. They're never going to do this at home. But then this steps in. But it's only useful if people kind of use it, obviously, and if people know about it and why it's working.
Yeah.
What's some of the advantages?
It's like we've discussed, and there's just the one study, and it was quite a small study, so we can't sort of say loading is what's going to help, because we just can't say that yet. There's actually another study by Henrik Reel being done at the moment called the Fix Heal trial. So he's it's quite a bigger study with 180 people comparing heavy slow resistance training with corticosteroid injection, and then a third group which is just education. So we'll have to wait and see what that shows as well. But it's more just getting some strength through the foot and improving some load tolerance, like any injury. I think also just the process of placing some load through the foot and getting some confidence. And so I think there's a number of different reasons why it potentially helps. Also a number of potential reasons why it doesn't help people as well. So yeah, it's definitely not a silver bullet, but I think it's a good option to try if people are not improving with their plantar fasciitis issues.
It's very big of you to say. I'm glad you're continuing this kind of trait I've got of ultra modest people being guests on Runchatlive. You're kind of sitting there going, yeah, it could work. I don't know. Don't forget, there's just one study with a small population size. It's what you said afterwards is so true. We might not know how it works, but on so many levels, like you've mentioned, like confidence, having that structure, even just having something. We used to say placebo is an ugly word, but creating that context where you've got an actual tool which you're going to use, you've been told it's going to help, you're going to help with exercise adherence. I mean, you can doubtlessly put more load through the whole mechanism there by forcing that toe into extension. You try doing the exercise without it and then compare it with it, and there's no doubt that it's kind of harder with it. So much easier than a towel, much easier. And also, like we're talking off air, consistency. You can see your improvement. You can actually see if you're getting stronger rather than just the towel is positioned slightly differently or something.
Yeah, it's just a bit more comfortable. It's EVA foam. It's reasonably dense, but it has some cushion to it. So yeah.
Stephen King, who's also one of your compatriots, isn't he?
G'day, Stephen. Yeah,
just what a legend to be. Great tool for all runners and therapists. Actually, you're Kiwi, aren't you? You mentioned.
I am.
Yeah. Which is why, I didn't say it at the time, but if you're watching the replay of this and it sounds like Hamish is saying, watch out for the tears. He's not talking about crying. It's just how they say tears. They will say tears. It's like, that's why you say it, isn't it? You're saying there'll be tears. They can't actually pronounce it differently than that. So there might be tears when you're doing the exercise, but we're actually talking about tears. Just a pronunciation.
Yeah, that's right.
Go on, say tears.
Which tears? Tears and tears. Muscle tears. Muscle tears.
Right.
My accent's sort of like a mix now between an Aussie and a Kiwi, probably even more Aussie. I've been here for 20 years, so yeah.
I love accents. Right. So thanks, Stephen, for that. Trevor Burbick has come back now. Oh, sorry, Burchick. Yeah. Sir Trevor, is there a link to the paper on the fighter? It's not the paper on the fighter, is it? The paper.
The fighter's based off the towel from the Rathleff paper.
So we'll put that in the comments. But yeah, there will be, Trevor. There will be something you can read for that.
Yeah, there's not a study on the fighter.
One day, eventually.
Yeah.
Well, there could have been. Oh, we'll see. Fantastic. Right, let's go with that. Okay, if you guys have got any more questions, we're getting now to 1:53, so it is getting a little bit towards Hamish's bedtime, definitely. Just check if there's any new messages in here. That's fine. Whilst people are thinking of any other questions, hopefully we've given you some of the do's and don'ts, and you can be thinking about loading particularly. That's the message today. It might not be the solution for everybody, but it's definitely worth trying as a conservative method. Right, mate. We've also said, I've been advertising it for a while. People who buy tickets for the Runchatlive conference, we're going to draw one now. So I need you to pick a number. We're doing it traditionally. Obviously, you can't reach out, but a number between 1 and 49 to see who gets a Fasciitis Fighter. We must say, before people get too excited, there is a chance you might have to pay for the custom tax on it, but we'll see. We'll see what we can do with that. Right, go on then.
If the winner has a PayPal account, I'll send them the fee for that as well.
Oh, that's very big of you. Thanks, Hamish. Right, I've been excited since I've been cutting these up. So give me the number, mate.
Let's go number 8.
8. Right. Whilst I'm looking for that number, what have you got in the pipeline? What's new for you? So you're seeing people now. How long have you been able to see people for in Australia for?
It never stopped. It was an essential service.
Right.
So I actually had a bit of time off because it was a bit of an unknown. So I had sort of 5 weeks off. But yeah, I've been back at work for a while now. So yeah, I work in the clinic 3 days a week, and Fasciitis Fighters a couple of days a week. So
you studied in London, didn't you, as well? You're no stranger to the UK, are you?
Oh yeah, I worked in London at a few different hospitals as a locum. Big Royal Free Hospital in Hampstead Heath, I think. Yeah, back in 2008 to 10. So
cool, very nice. Yep. Right, I found number 8. Just proof. That's not proof at all. Oh yeah, you can see an 8 there, kind of. There you go. Right, okay. So person who is getting, I love these things. Just do excite me. And the winner is. Oh, I'm pleased about that. There you go. Well, I'll be pleased if anybody won, but there you go. There's the winner, Emma Bergen-Kisby. You have just got yourself a fantastic Fasciitis Fighter, which is obviously be signed by the creator. Beautiful moment. And Emma's in the UK, so I will pass on your details, and we'll sort that out with you. You've probably got one already, knowing you and how good a therapist you are. But hey, here's another one on the way. Right, thanks for doing that, Hamish.
No worries.
So
we were joking earlier about how Matt still uses the manual pick a number out of the bowl instead of a
I'm such a bad
website auto.
Exciting. That makes my day more than anything. Apart from talking to you, it just makes my day. I love the idea. If I was a professional person, I just would have used some online generator of random names or something, or just picked a person and just said, "Hamish, just say number 3, and I'll just have a number 3s in my bowl." No. It doesn't work that way in Runchatlive. It doesn't work that way at all. Thanks so much for joining us. If people want to contact you, want some more information, what's the best way, Hamish?
Just email info@fasciitisfighter.com.au.
There you go. Do you blog much at all? Do you write stuff?
I don't really have much time, to be honest, with a 3-year-old and 1-year-old, and doing Fasciitis Fighter and running my own physio practice. So, bit of social media. It's yeah.
But you're out there on a few podcasts. There's another one here now. If people search for you, then you're out and about, haven't you? So yeah, there's lots of information people can read about you and your stuff.
Yeah, I'm Hamish the physio on social media.
Do you do conferences? Do you talk? Do you take it around?
No, I'm not that important.
But you are. It's way too modest.
Modest. I was thinking of doing some going to some conferences just before all this COVID took off. So yeah, that might be on the back burner for a while.
I think it should be. You've got to get out there. You just need someone like Stephen or to grab you by the collar and get you around the country a little bit. It'd be definitely great to get you over to the UK. Maybe 2021. Yeah, when everything's back to normal again, we'll get you over to the UK. You can come to Runchatlive conference. Would you do that? Do you think? If I sorted out the ticket, we had Bartold over. He came all the way from
Adelaide.
Melbourne.
Is he in Adelaide?
Adelaide. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Bartold comes over. Anyway, we'll have a chat. Thank you so much again for joining us. I will send you back down to the lobby now, but then I'll say goodbye to people and then come down and join you and just say goodbye properly. Okay? But thanks very much.
Thanks for joining us, everyone.
Thank you very much, Hamish Vickerman, aka Hamish the Physio, creator of the Fasciitis Fighter. All right, people. Well, that hour's zoomed by very, very quickly. Too quickly, but hey, that's how life goes. Thank you very much. I wasn't trying to sell kippers. Who put that down? Ordering the kipper now. It's always comes into my head. Kippers, slap yourself with a kipper in the rain or something. Yeah, things might get better, but it's not a kipper. I'm sorry, I don't know where that came from. But anyway, ordering the Fasciitis Fighter now. Yeah, it's available. Amazon. It's available on the website. In fact, if you go to, I've got a little screenshot here somewhere. Let's bring this up before we say. There we go. Yeah. So if you go to if you Google Fasciitis Fighter, it'll come up. But there is a button which says UK store, so you can order it through the UK. It is available, or you can go on Amazon, whatever you prefer. So yeah. Right. Thanks for joining us. Have I got anything else to say? We've drawn the winner. Congratulations, Emma, again. I should check my crib sheet instead of forgotten. Oh, thank you very much. I've got to say thank you to the 888 of you who joined me for Therapy Live. What a great event, if anyone did go and watch it. 22,000 people or something online tuning in, which is why they probably had so many problems in the morning and some of the presentations weren't quite working. But yeah, it was thrilling to see so many people come along and listen to my little 30 minutes on putting the evidence back. I forgive the 21,112 of you who didn't come along. That's fine. Obviously, you had technical problems, but hey, all the presentations are available on therapistlearning.com. It's £50 if you are interested, but you are getting 73 presentations. So it's kind of like 68p a presentation. And as far as CPD goes, well, if you're a therapist, you can do much better. But I tell you what, if you're runners and you like to get the geek on, then I would recommend it as well. So it's just therapistlearning.com, fondly known as TL.C, which is clever. I'll see what they did there. And yeah, for 50 quid, you get access to all of the presentations, all 73 of them. So I would I would recommend that you take a little trip there, particularly if you're a therapist. It'll give you CPD for the next 2 years. Those of you who enjoyed my presentation, I will be uploading, as I promised, 6 further videos which go into a little bit more detail on putting the evidence back into stretching, into shoes, into pain science, into running form, into gait analysis, etc., etc. And also all of the speakers, nearly all the speakers from Runchatlive Conference 2019 are going to be loaded on there as well. So if you did enjoy people like Ian Griffiths, at Therapy Live, and who else was at Therapy Live? Derek Griffin, Mike James. They're all speakers at 2019 conference. But you've also got JF Asculia, Chris Johnson, Izzy Moore, Jack Chu, Paul Westwood, Paul Coker. So yeah, therapistlearninganyway.com is the place to have a little check out for your CPD for the next 5 years. Right, people, thank you very much for putting up with me for another hour. I hope you have had some nice information about plantar fasciitis, particularly if you're a runner. Let the conversation continue. Use the various comments and the posts I've got in running community to ask and answer. I will definitely keep an eye on it and help with any questions. If there's anything which Hamish needs answering, then I'll contact him and get an answer from the horse's mouth, as it was. But yeah, don't let it stop now. Let the communication going, share it, and we'll be back. I'm not quite sure when the next Runchat Live is. We might have a little bit of a break now. But yeah, I will see you very soon. Keep an eye out on the social posts. I'm at Runchatlive everywhere, and we will be back with a fantastic new guest very soon, and it will hopefully stream to running community as well. Right, take care, look after yourself, keep staying safe. Let's do everything we can to avoid a second peak. It's up to you whether it happens or not. It really is up to you and the people around you. So look after each other. Bye-bye. You're listening to Runchatlive podcast, putting the evidence back into running injury and performance.